Ideal Roadmap Update webcast. Today's webcast will focus on new enhancements for CA Datacom and CA Ideal version 14.01, as well as the newest delivery, CA Datacom and CA Ideal version 15.0, that went GA on September 30th, 2014. In addition, this webcast will provide a brief overview of the upcoming CADRE CA Datacom Technical Conference being held in Plano, Texas in January. Please join me in welcoming today's presenters, Kevin Shuma, Vice President of Product Management at CA Technologies, and Dick Millar, President of CADRE International. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Today's call, as you said, is a DatacomIdeal update, if you will. This is an ongoing process. We would like to bring you guys in and keep you up to date with our Datacom and Ideal development and delivery processes. In addition, today's session, we're also going to cover a very unique event that we're having in January, which is the CADRE Technical Conference, which is going to be an opportunity for all of our users to come and gain a lot of insight and knowledge about the CA Datacom and CA Ideal products. So first of all, let's start off with the agenda. Basically, we'll do the Ideal Datacom status update. We'll talk about some of our projects that we want to bring you up to date on. We'll go into a detailed overview of the CADRE Technical Conference, and then we'll end off with a few of the what's coming next, as well as a Q&A period. First thing we want to talk to you about is the CA Datacom Ideal Status Update is our ability to go public. Basically, we have now placed the majority of the Datacom CA documentation on the web outside of the firewall. What this means is basically you can go out and Google Datacom and be directed right to our CA Datacom books. Most of our manuals are out there. They're searchable via Google. In addition, our bookshelves are arranged so that you have additional information out there available. Particularly new things that we're doing are called user scenarios. User scenarios provide a single how-to document. While they may reference material that is spread across multiple Datacom manuals, it'll be brought all together into a single scenario. So that if someone wants to install something, let's say Change Data Capture Plus, which is one of our new features, you can actually go out and bring up a scenario that will step you through all of the steps necessary to implement the Change Data Capture Plus feature without requiring you to jump from one manual to another. Now, we do update the individual manuals to show the changes that have been made, but the scenario gives you the ability to bring all this information together in one place. In addition, we can do things like record presentations and show them back as MP4s, create YouTube videos, and a lot of other multimedia sources can be delivered as part of these CA Datacom bookshelves that are now available on the web. The second major thing that we want to bring to our community and bring up with everyone is that Datacom, like most of CA, has moved to the Agile development philosophy. In Agile development philosophy, we have active Scrum teams which work together to build and deliver new features for the product. However, unlike the old waterfall days where development would spend days or months and years researching and developing code, and then pass it to the quality assurance teams to test the code, and then to finally get the clients involved 2 or 3 years later, the process is much quicker, involves all the teams at the same time, and ensures that A, we deliver a quicker answer to the problem, but B, that we deliver the right answer. We are very, very happy to say that we've had a significant number of customers involved with our active Scrum teams, and that these customers have provided tremendous value to us in helping us to determine what needs to be delivered, when it needs to be delivered, and how it should be delivered. The active Scrum process, or the Agile development process, is a combination of every piece of the Datacom team whether it's development, product management, support, QA, tech info, aligned with customer members who help us to guide and drive these deliveries. Now we're going to talk about the Datacom version 1401 project, or as we called it, DAD 1401. DAD basically stood for the Datacom Active Delivery version 1401, a series of small but important enhancements that could be delivered to the base 14.0 product in a very short period of time and add value to the clients without a major interruption or upgrade process. Another thing we have to understand is how when you adopt the Agile process, do you then manage the long-term development environments? We know that in the old days, we would basically sit down and look at a set of requirements that we know of this year. We would plan out how long it would take to do that set of requirements, and we would start down the path of doing that development. However, 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, when we go to deliver that feature, that set of functionality, the importance of the feature may have changed. It may have been surpassed by something else in the marketplace. In a lot of cases, we found that we were missing the mark, if you will, of delivering the right thing at the right time. So the way that we manage this feature functionality requirements, if you will, in an Agile development is through a thing that we call the backlog. The backlog is basically a list of ideas, of changes, of enhancements needed for the products that we maintain actively and continually review and massage to find what is the thing we need to do now, how can we best do it, and how can we get customers involved to help us deliver that. Now, backlog items are typically made up of what we call epics, which are very big ideas. An epic might be something like, the example I gave before, the Change Data Capture Plus. Change Data Capture Plus might be stated as an epic as, I need the ability to take Datacom's Change Data Capture facility, which generates changes to one single repository, and break it into multiple repositories, because as changes are captured, I need to separate those changes according to business need, security, or other processes. That's an epic. That's a very large idea. Now, in order to implement that epic, there might be 10, 15, or even 20 different individual stories or small changes that need to be done for that to be complete. So what we begin with in the managing the backlog is we have epics, which are very large, if you will, ideas. And then as we break the epic down and start looking at how to implement that epic, we create what are called user stories, which are smaller, more eatable, if you will, or biteable chunks of the bigger story. What can we deliver and test it and show that we've actually created a piece of what we need to fill this complete big epic? As part of the managing the backlog, we obviously have to constantly do prioritization. Prioritization means that we have, taken into effect the customer's needs, the value of the features, the resources that will be consumed in order to deliver the feature, and what is the realistic delivery to the client. How can we be sure that what we deliver and the time that we deliver makes this thing a valuable part of what we're delivering. Now, as with everything, you can't just constantly sit down and look at the backlog and say, hey, we have 3,000 things. Today this is number one. Tomorrow this is a different thing is number one. Forget what you were working on yesterday. You'll never actually ever get anything finished. So what we have to do is take a reasonable amount of time, let's say a 3 or 6 month period, and we say, let's build a project charter. Let's look at what are the top items that we can fit into this 3 to 6 month period, and let's go get those done. Most likely, within the 3 or 6 month period, those will still be very important items, and they'll still be very valuable to the client. And at the end of that 3 to 6 month period, we'll go back to the backlog again and see if the next items that were on the list are still the top items. They may not be, but by being agile, that allows us to do the things that we can do right now, deliver those, and then go back and review what comes next. So it has a lot of communication. If there's anything about Agile, it is that you communicate constantly, because that's how we create the items that provide the customer value for the right resource consumption and deliver them on time. So a project charter is basically selecting those items that we're going to do, and then we follow that project charter with a thing called a release plan. Now, in order to drive the Agile teams, we need a champion, if you will, of the backlog. A person that's responsible for the backlog, manages the backlog, and makes sure that within this environment that we're keeping track of everything that's out there, following through on what we said we were going to do, and making sure these things are being done. So the champion of this backlog is a person called the product owner. For CA Datacom, we've hired a young lady, Susan Broody, or Sue as she prefers to be called. Sue has tremendous amount of experience with the Agile development process and has been a great find for our Datacom team. Sue is our product owner. So she is the person that manages the backlog, helps to keep the epics and user stories together, and is the person that works with me as the product manager to build and create these plans for the clients. So we have a very close-knit team that works with these customer epics and user stories, puts them together, and then actually works with clients, development, quality assurance, technical info, all together to quickly deliver these items. So once we get this built, we have to create sort of a roadmap, if you will, of where is CA Datacom going. So what we want to have is, as we'll show you, is that we want to create these manageable enhancement packs, basically groups of features and functions, as I described, coming from the backlog, coming into a project charter and going through a release plan that we can deliver in a short period of time. Maybe it's a 6-month project, 9-month project, but we deliver them as small, manageable, and enhancement packs that give immediate customer validation and verification and basically give you the answers that you need. Now, in order to do that, we need to basically have a group that works together, that builds the code, tests the code, does the quality assurance on the code, and the most important part of all of this is to have customers help us verify the code. Now, when we are in the middle of a development process under Agile with our Agile delivery or active delivery plan, if we complete a feature and that feature has passed all the quality assurance testing and we have customer verification of the feature, we can deliver that feature as a PTF, basically as new maintenance, so the clients can make use of it. They don't have to wait until the release plan is finished 6 months from now. They can actually see real benefits in a few weeks or a few months. They don't have to wait until the plan is done. This allows us to basically deliver new feature functionality as quickly as it's reasonably possible. Now, the other thing we can also do is if there are a couple features that we're delivering where feature A is great, but you actually need feature B and A together in order to really deliver the full power of what you were trying to do, we can move those and roll those together as an enhancement pack. We may come out with 4 PTFs in order to deliver the true functionality that's needed. But even in that case, we can deliver this functionality before the entire project is finished. So unlike a waterfall project where you may hear about features that we have done and completed and they're there, but you have to wait until the entire project finishes 3 years from now before they become available, you have this ability to see things much quicker and actually start making use of it. It's really great that the customers can see the benefits in months instead of years. But the one thing that everybody must be aware of is that we must have customer validation. We need the customers to be part of this. The customers need to work with us to validate our ideas before we start, to listen to us as we're developing it, to make sure we're on track, and obviously to be part of the testing to make sure that what we deliver is what we planned on delivering and what they agreed upon as being the right thing. Now, some of our processes need to have rules of engagement. If we're going to do Agile delivery, and we're going to give you the capability of adding new features on the fly, if you will, we have to have rules of engagement about how we do these features. The features have to either be ultra low risk, meaning that this feature can be implemented at every customer site, provide immediate benefit for every customer, and add no risk to their overall environment. Or they have to be features that can be installed, turned off. And only when the customer is ready to actually begin using it will he engage the feature and go through the process to activate the feature and test it and go through the normal QA test environment production type of rollout. We cannot deliver a feature through the active development process that's basically going to put the customer at risk. So one of our goals here is that we have a very strong rule of engagement that says as we look at every feature, the feature must either be ultra low risk with immediate value or be installed in a default off position so that no one is exposed to the feature until they're ready to turn it on themselves. Now the features must be delivered without a system upgrade requirement. We don't want to have to upgrade from 14.0 to 14.01 to 14.02 to 14.03. We want the clients to be able to go from a 14.0 environment to a 14.02 environment. And basically, just by applying maintenance, come to the most current version of Datacom. We also cannot force clients to change their existing setup. I've mentioned before, CDC Plus, Change Data Capture Plus, is this new capability to go from one change capture repository to 9 change capture repositories. Great. You now have the ability, instead of sending changes just to one place, to send it to 9 places so that you can have 9 downstream feed processes that you're working with. We can't go out to the existing client who is very happy with just one change repository and has been working just fine and tell them, oh, by the way, you now have to change everything you're doing and put in 9 processes. We need to be able to implement these new features without requiring clients who are using the existing set of features to make changes in their setup. So we have a very strict set of rules of engagement around how we deliver these active features. Now, version 14.01 was a project that began last October and finished this past June. We did not make a lot of fanfare about the project, but it had tremendous value to all the clients. Every client who's currently running version 14.0 at a current maintenance level has all of this feature functionality delivered to them and available to them just through standard maintenance streams. The very first feature that we delivered was our enhanced zip capability. This has been talked about multiple times, that basically Datacom today, version 14.0 with current maintenance, can offload as much as 90% of the MUS CPU to the zip processing engine, meaning that you're only using about 10% of the CPU on the normal GP processors, which basically gives you tremendous cost savings. We actually have several sites now reporting zip offloads of over 98%. So of a multi-user that uses 100 CPU seconds, over 98 of them have been routed to the zip processor, and only 2 of them actually went to the GP processor. I actually have one site tell me that their bill from IBM for mainframe CPU consumption for the entire LPAR, for the entire environment, dropped by 10% by putting this feature in. Datacom isn't the entire environment, so it couldn't drop by 90%, but because Datacom was a significant part of their environment, their total cost of the environment dropped by over 10% by just turning this one feature on. A second feature that was delivered with version 14.01 was the SQL Web Connect. We now enable clients who have a Datacom DB license but do not have the SQL or server options installed to utilize the SQL and server functionality with their DB license. Now you have the full SQL Server functionality, meaning you can do all the SQL commands and you can do all the server functionality, but there is a limit, and the limit is that you can only use it for 2 concurrent users. What this allows you is the ability to test out SQL and Server. It gives you the capability for DBA to use SQL to do special research kind of functionality. For people with business analysis tools or business analytic tools where they just need a JDBC connection to go in and upload information, that's only 1 user. And you can actually utilize this SQL Web Connect to do that. Now, obviously, clients who get used to using SQL and want to expand it to a much larger portfolio would then upgrade to the full function products. But SQL Web Connect was delivered as part of 1401. I mentioned this multiple times, CDC Plus. We have clients come to us with a very, very strong business need. Change data capture is driving their business, but they have 2 very disparate, very secure environments that are using one multi-user facility. And changes for those 2 different environments are being grouped together into a change repository. If someone is looking at that change repository because they have rights because they're in Group A, they could actually see data that was part of Group B, and that presented a very significant business risk. So for this customer working directly with us, we are able to quickly develop a feature called CDC Plus that allows them to add 8 additional change capture collection databases so that they could separate the change capture information into 9 different repositories, basically the base repository plus 8 additionals, and have it such that they could separate the data that's being captured along business need or security need. This feature was designed, delivered, and tested by the customer within about 3 months. Another feature, and a feature that we just now delivered, which is tremendously valuable, and again was driven by a client that had a tremendous need, is our online area move. Datacom now has new patent-pending technology that allows you to actually go out and move the underlying data set for a data or index area without stopping access to the data or index area. For example, let's say that you have a data area that you allocated and you have dynamic extend turned on and everything is working fine. Suddenly, thousands of new rows gets added to the data area, and before you realize it, the maximum number of extents and the maximum number of volumes have been allocated and used. You can't add a new extent because you're beyond what ZIOS will allow you. If you run out of space, you're going to have to take an outage in order to take that database down, back it up, and reallocate the data set to a much larger extent. With the online move technology, without taking an outage, you can actually go over to a new volume, or even the same volume, but go to a new environment, allocate a new target data set with much larger extents, bigger secondary extents, and actually move the data from the old data set or source data set to the new data set while it's still open and being used. Datacom creates an I/O gate that basically manages when you're looking for a data row, has the data row been moved yet? And if it hasn't, it gets it from the old data set. If it has, it takes you to the new data set. Once it's complete, then the old data set by default is renamed to a funky name that we have out there for historical purposes, and the new data set is renamed to the old data set name so that any JCL you have that mentions the data set specifically is taken care of. This feature functionality, we were approached in, I think, about March of this year about this dramatic need, and we delivered this to the client to test in August. A tremendous new feature functionality that made a tremendous business need delivered in about 4 months. So this is part of what the Agile development process can do for you. We also delivered as part of 1401 our first delivery of what is called active-active. IBM's active-active facility is the capability of two database environments to work in concert even though they are not logically or physically connected. Typically they're across long distances. We have delivered our first delivery of this, which we call Active Query, which gives us the capability of having of a Datacom region in one environment basically keep a second Datacom region active and up to date within a few microseconds, even though that second region may be thousands of miles away, utilizing the IBM MQ series technology. This is the foundation for CA Datacom to be one of the data sources that works with the IBM active-active infrastructure. Another set of features in 1401 that is very important is a set of 4 different fixes that we delivered to automate CXX updates. Clients are still today utilizing the information in the CXX report, things like row counts, blocks in use, to make decisions, even though they know that the CXX report may be out of date because the most current information is actually in the multi-user or the dynamic system tables. Or in some cases, multi-users have been crashed, and when they crash, the information that was in the multi-user for the CXX statistics never made it back to the CXX. Therefore, the CXX is now out of date. There are utilities that you can run that will recreate and reset those record counts and blocks in use type of statistics. However, the customer really doesn't know if they're out of date until he actually finds out there's a difference and a bad decision was made about that. We've actually created a series of updates that periodically, once a day, copies all the information from the MUF CXX information to the actual CXX data set. Anytime a multi-user is canceled and we get control, we still have enough control to be able to do something before we come down, we'll update that information with the CXX. Anytime you run a CXX report, we make sure that the CXX DASD is updated from the MUF memory before the CXX report is there. A series of very small enhancements that create a very nice customer feedback, if you will. We've made multiple SQL enhancements and optimizations have been delivered. Things like additional performance optimizations using group by expressions, adding index-only processing to SQL, a new multiple tables under an OR predicate. It basically is a capability to weed out a join clause that might have 20 or 30 tables in it, weed out the tables that are actually not referenced so that we can only join the rows that we need to in order to give the result. Since we now have the dynamic system tables and we have the correct row counts kept in MUF memory and we have the automated CXX updates that keep those row counts correct, we can basically change the SQL count asterisk command to use those row counts rather than actually go out and read through every row in order to tell you how many rows are on a table. There's a significant number of small SQL enhancements and optimizations that we've delivered as part of the 1401 project. For Server and Ideal, we've added a lot of new functionality for Server, removing CCI dependency from Server. You can now basically run Server without CCI, both on the PC and the mainframe. Adding a new console command to do what the old batch utility did. So you have the ability to do server shutdown through a console command. The DB threads depth count gives you the capability of seeing just how many threads. Server allocates a number of threads to Datacom. Well, how many of those threads did you actually use? And we've added new trace capabilities. In addition, for Ideal, we had a client who had a significant problem with customers taking programs, marking them in use, and then walking away and leaving the programs hung. Now, they could dequeue the program, but if they do dequeue the program and allow somebody else to get to it, did we just lose a set of program changes? Did we back level something? Have we created a bad environment? we've added a set of user IDs to these messages so that we can tell somebody, you can't have this ideal program because it's been locked and being updated by this person. The message before just said you can't have the program. By just adding who the person is that's locking it, you now have the ability to at least go ask that person, why do you have this program out and when are you going to return it? In addition, we've added things such as the integration with the new CA MAT product. CA MAT is the mainframe application tuner product that specifically tunes COBOL applications. We've added integration with IDEAL so the CA MAT can also work with our IDEAL applications. So as you see, 1401 was a set of features and functions delivered over about a 9-month period. Each one in itself was a small feature that had significant value to a client. But when you put it all together, we delivered a significant amount of value without upsetting the apple cart, without requiring major upgrades, and made lots of clients very happy. Now moving on, moving on and not backwards, sorry folks. The very last thing that we want to talk about here is our Datacom version 15. Datacom version 15 was started 3 years ago. It was our last waterfall project, and as always, we started research development and selecting the features that would be in 15 about 3 years ago. And as we described, that's really not the current methodology in the way we need to do things today. However, we needed to finish this project out and get this feature functionality to the client base. Now what was interesting is even though this was a waterfall project, the actual QA and beta process for the version 15 tools was done under an Agile team. We actually implemented the Agile Scrum process in order to get through QA and beta in order to deliver the product faster and finalize its delivery. We delivered on September 30th 5 different installation packs files to general availability. Our core product set, DB, DD, DQ, SQL, Pressback, and Fast Restore, as well as our new CSS Services version 15, Server version 15, and Ideal IPC version 15 were all delivered to GA in September 30th of this year. So we have now version 14 as well as version 15 in the field. First question you're going to ask is, well, all those cool 1401 features you just told me about, are they in version 15.0? The answer is yes. They were added to version 15 as they were added to 1401 so that no client would get back leveled when we went to the new release. What's in version 15.0? Oh, there's a lot of functionality there. We've added 3 years worth of work in order to get 15.0 out. So a lot of this information is there, and 15.0 is a good release to go to. But we have a lot of new functionality there. Faster restart processing. We're now doing restart in parallel. Enhanced zip. It's crazy to believe that, you know, when you have over 90% zip enablement with 1401 that you could do more with 15.0, but we actually are doing more. Because we have more 64-bit availability, more of the ability to do things in memory in version 15, we can actually push our zip exploitation even higher. How much higher, I don't know. I don't think you could ever get to 100%, but it's going to be, for those sites that may be running 90% under 14.0, they may be able to get to 95% under 15.0, where clients who are running already at 98.3% under 14.0, they may only get to 98.5%. You know, there's at some point you just can't get any more out of that tree, if you will. But some cool things in version 15, ability to add and delete indexes on the fly. You can add a new key as well as get rid of an old key without taking the database offline. You can extend a virtual database. So if you have a virtual database that fills up, you can extend it. You can extend a TTM, the temporary table manager. If you're running some SQL processes that have overlaid or overloaded the TTM and the TTM is very full, you can actually temporarily extend it, make it bigger to be able to keep those SQL processes going. In previous releases, you'd have to recycle a multi-user to make the TTM bigger. We've added support for large rows in variable log support. We realize our parallel variable log is much faster than the old fixed log and provide tremendous benefit to the clients. Unfortunately, it did not handle the maximum row sizes that we see in clients of 32K. We've added that ability for the variable log now to support those large row sizes. URI reuse. This was never a challenge. You have 4 billion URIs, so you can add 4 billion records to a given area before you run out of URIs. And typically you do a backup and load, and when you do the backup and load, the URIs get reset. So typically it's never been a problem. But now we have sites that stay up for 4 and 5 years without ever coming down and never do a true offload backup and load. They're using online reorgs. Eventually, the URI, which is a number that gets assigned every time a row is added, never gets reset, and eventually they actually will run out of URI numbers. So in version 15, we created a capability without taking the database offline to reset and reuse the URI numbers. A new very important feature in version 15 is the SQL cache. The SQL source cache gives us the capability specifically targeted towards our OWC and JWC clients to where a query that comes in and is processed, and we go through the overhead of analyzing the query and determining the best possible way to process it, that we can actually cache that information and have it available to the clients so that the next time that same query is processed, maybe with different values but the same query statement itself, we can actually utilize the SQL the information from the previous execution to re-execute the query much faster. The SQL source cache also gives us the capability of tracking the most expensive SQL statements, looking at how those statements could be improved, and with the right tool set, even provide an alternate SQL syntax to use when that bad query comes in order to provide a better response. 1502, 15 also delivers things like new SQL DDL commands, the ability to create areas and databases using SQL versus data dictionary. Long key support, the ability to basically have key lengths greater than the 180 bytes. This is very important for clients who are still moving VSAM data sets over to Datacom. VSAM currently has a key length, I believe the key length in VSAM is 256 bytes. If you actually are using a data set and have a key length of over 180 bytes, you run into a problem with Datacom. We now support large keys or keys up to 999 bytes. If you're going to delete a key, we talked earlier about deleting a key, right? Well, prior to deleting the key, you might want to restrict the key and say, keep the key active, but don't let anybody use it to see if any programs fail. So we have the ability to basically restrict key usage, to turn off the key from the perspective of application usage, but keep the key active so that if you do find a program does need that key in order to be successful, you can turn its usage back on again and not have to rebuild the key from scratch. Upgrade without an outage. Clients running version 14 can now upgrade to version 15 without taking an outage. We have the capability with our shadow multi-user facility to do an upgrade that does not require the system to come down. We have multiple new enhanced DB utility functions. We've added support in Ideal Web for the web documents. We now handle documents within Ideal Web to make it much easier to create Ideal Web applications. Lots of performance things. Actually, we had support for Ideal Web and Datacom, and then we had actually had the web documents, so that's why they're there. And we even have support in our CICS services now to do Java. You can code Java applications in CICS and access Datacom. And just finalizing out here on version 15, because we have to move on very quickly here, we also have added multiple new features in version 15 of server. Things like server fully supports the shadow failover muff. So as we did with CICS, if you have a primary multi-user with a shadow and the primary fails, shadow takes over, CICS automatically reconnects to the shadow. The same thing will happen with server. We've added new JDBC methods as well as JDBC batch processing, ODBC 3.8 compliance, ODBC batch processing. The threads capability we talked about in 14.01 was actually delivered as a 15.0 feature, and we actually reworked it back to 14.01, so it shows up both as a new feature in 14.01 as well as 15.0. And the removal from CCI. Same thing. It was actually a 15.0 feature that we found to be very important that we actually reworked into the 14.01 project. So there's lots more in version 15. As I said, we delivered 5 new version 15.0 PAX files, which represented about 11 different Datacom products at the version 15.0 level. So with that, I'd like to turn over the presentation to Dick Millar to talk to us a little bit about this new CADRE Technical Conference coming up in January of next year. Dick?
Thank you, Kevin. With all the changes you've just heard, it became painfully obvious to the executive board of CADRE that it was really important for us to have a technical session to discuss and to inform all the user community of the changes and also to provide some additional benefits to them as our members of CADRE. And for that reason, we've worked in conjunction very closely with Kevin and his team to put together what we think is something that's going to be very exciting taking place in January. It will be January the 20th through the 23rd. Essentially, it's 4 days of training, the opportunity to meet with other users around the country, and an opportunity to meet face-to-face with members of the CA development staff and talk with them about particular issues you may have in your site on a one-to-one basis. We also looked and said, all right, economy is what it is. We can't change that. But what we wanted to do is make sure that there was no fee attached to it. So you're not looking at $1,500, $1,900, $1,000 to attend this conference. There is no registration fee. For that matter, we've tried to cut on expenses for food and things like that. Most of the food for the conference will indeed be taken care of either by CA or by CADRE. With the help of Patty Pecorella from CA, we negotiated a group rate at the Aloft Hotel, which is about 3 miles away from the development center, which is where all the sessions will take place, and we're really excited about that. One thing from CA, and I've been around for more than a couple weeks, is we always used to have a great event night. And we're going to continue that this year. We have made arrangements to take over a local ranch. We'll have entertainment, refreshments, and a Texas barbecue to keep everybody in the Texas mind frame. The first day essentially will include many things that I think will be of benefit to everyone. There will be opportunity to meet with CA on a one-to-one basis, to request demos and to see demos, because indeed we're talking about the Datacom Development Center in Plano. Also, as I mentioned earlier, you may have particular items that you're facing on a day-to-day basis. This is a great opportunity to talk to a developer that you may have talked to before on the phone, or you may have talked to somebody in support on a face-to-face basis. So it's the kind of thing that if there's an issue that you'd like resolved, we want to know about that. And it will be a great opportunity for everyone to benefit. The first day, we essentially have set up, let me get back to that. That's what happens when you're too quick here. The first day, as I mentioned, will be for education, and we've designed it with 3 separate and distinct tracks. If you're a new DBA, then we have some sessions for you that I think will really give you a good foundation to build your career on. If you're a senior DBA, then obviously you're going to be looking to say, all right, how can I enhance the skills that I already have? And an area that I think kind of got pushed to the side but we want to bring back is how, as an application developer, can you grow your skills and parallel that with the new releases that are coming out from Datacom, be it with Java, be it with whatever. We're real excited about the opportunity. So we're going to ask people when they sign up for the conference, and if you haven't done so, you need to select one of those 3 areas. Man, I am having a hard time here with this. After the technical session, after the education, the free education on day 1, we are going to have what we're going to call focus groups. And this is the kind of thing that you may have a particular request. We want you to let us know in advance so we can provide the technical people to meet with you and members from your organization. So you'll be able to go back to your office after attending the conference with answers to day-to-day problems. Day 2, which is the Wednesday, and as I mentioned to you, the 20th is the first day, the 19th is the Monday, which was a travel day, if indeed you're coming in for education, because education will start promptly, as will all the following days at 8 o'clock. We have arranged to have Mike Madden, who is the general manager for mainframe within CA, and he is going to give you his view in the direction in which CA is going. And you can see the rest of the morning is going to be jam-packed with more details, much like what Kevin is talking about from release 14.01 and also release 15. We then break in the afternoon to either app dev or DBA, and then following that, we will have our CADRE general session. During the CADRE general session, we'll be selecting or presenting the 5 members that have been voted by you as member of CADRE for the Wall of Fame. We will also be presenting an award to CA for employees that you recognize have given you above and beyond service during this past year. Following the general session, CA will be sponsoring a dinner, and it will be very conveniently located right next to the hotel. Thursday, we will continue with David Hodgkins, who is now the head of all of data management, and that includes the databases and security. And we will also have Mike Herrera out of Boston, I believe that's how he pronounces it up there, to talk to us about big data. The next session is one that I personally am very excited about. We hear a lot about Agile development. You just heard Kevin talking about it. So we're going to have a person from CA who was involved in that project talk about that. And just as importantly, we're going to have the customer who was involved, because it indeed, in this case, takes 2 to tango, and be able to give you their point of view, what they saw, what they received, and the benefits. The neat part is you also have an opportunity to ask questions in that session. The rest of the afternoon will be divided back into the DBA track and the app dev, whatever the particular poison is. At 5:30, we're going to have the experience at the ranch. We will be providing transportation from the hotel to the ranch. It'll be a great evening. Texas barbecue, as I mentioned. There will be other entertainment and transportation to and from your hotel will take place. Friday is a half day, and we're going to try and jam in as much as we can into that half day with sessions, again, broken up on the application side or on the DBA side. One of the things when we started this conference, we said that we wanted this to be a conference run and directed by the user community for the user community. We want your impact. We want your feedback on what you want to hear. We've left a couple openings in our conference because we still want to hear from some people. We haven't heard from everybody. As of right now, I think we're sitting at about 60 attendees. So if there's something that you feel is appropriate and special that you want to hear more about, this is a great opportunity. So please let us know what is it that you're looking for. If you have not already done so, go out to communities.ca.com, and under the community group for CA Datacom CADRE, you'll get all the details you need to register for the conference, additional details, also an opportunity to nominate people for the CA Employee Recognition Award, and also an opportunity to select people you think belong on the CADRE Wall of Fame. If you have further questions, please feel free to reach out to me through my email, and that's dmillar, M-I-L-L-A-R, at mind-core, C-O-R-E.com. We're excited. Again, it's the 19th to the 23rd. We look forward to seeing you. And back to you, Kevin.
Thanks, Dick. As you guys can see, we have a lot of opportunity here, and one of the things that Dick and I have stressed from the very beginning is that we want this to be a conference run by the users, for the users, providing information that the users want. So we want your feedback, we want your input, and we definitely want your participation. So we have a lot to do here. I have committed to have every person that I can from the Datacom community to be here and attend. So unlike CA Worlds, where we may have something in the neighborhood of 10 customers for every CA person, at this conference we may be 3 to 1, where we may have 20 to 25 CA DatacomIdeal folks here to work with 60 users, so we may have a very nice ratio where you can always get time with someone. So it'll be a great conference. We really need to get everybody thinking towards it, getting their input, and helping us to finalize and deliver. So moving on. The requirement here, obviously, is there's always a legal slide. All this information we're providing is basically provided to the best of our knowledge as of this date, and we always want to make sure that you're aware that things can and will change. And with our new Agile structure, the great part about it is things can and will change, and definitely do change. Typically, they change for the better, so this is very good. So moving to the next thing, what's next? We've talked about the fact that we've delivered Datacom Active Delivery version 14.01, which has several significant features. We've rolled 15.0 into GA, And we are now in the process of forming up our Datacom Active Delivery version 14.02. This project will begin next week. We have already 7 customer participants who have signed up to be part of the process. Signing up as a customer participant means that you're going to show up. Basically, it's a commitment about an hour per month, and we're going to explain what we're doing and why we're doing it, and we'll get your feedback about it. During the process, we'll give demos of it, and what we hope to do is at the end of each month, we'll show you what we've done in the previous month and how cool it is and the features that are available, and in most cases even give you test PTFs or the ability to actually get the code and demo it and use it yourself. And we'll talk about what we're going to do in the next month. Making sure that as we go through the process that we continually keep customers involved and that we're developing the right thing at the right time. Now, we already have several hot items on the list. The online area move that we talked about delivers the capability of moving all of the index and data areas within the shop, which is probably 90% of the data sets. But there are a few other data sets that aren't data and indexes that you want to be able to move. One of the other things is that there's a capability when we move from one data set to another that you may want to actually shrink the data set because your data has gotten over allocated. So we're looking at opportunities that we could use online move to target a data set that is smaller than the initial data set so that we could actually save space when you get data sets that are over allocated. So we have multiple hot items already on this list, but we continue to build the list and continue in an agile process of selecting a certain group of items, working with the clients, and then going forward. So the number one thing is we're still actively accepting customer participants. So if there are other customers out there that want to be part of this process and are on version 14, because that's the one thing you're going to be required to be on, you know, we're looking for you. You're welcome to join, and we'd love to have you join us for these customer participation. As I said, the anticipation is about an hour a month webcast, as well as time when you can to test and validate features and functionality. So with that, we're at our hour, but I'll go ahead and ask the operator to ask for questions, and I'll be willing to entertain questions for the next few minutes.
At this time, I would like to remind everyone, if you would like to ask a question, press *1 on your telephone keypad. We will pause for just a moment to compile the Q&A roster. Again, to ask a question, press *1 on your telephone keypad.
Well, while we're waiting, one of the questions I had that came in over the chat line here, someone sent me a chat question anonymously. The question basically is, Kevin, since we're doing the Agile development and you're talking about 14.01 and 14.02, does that mean that we're not going to do anything with 15, and does that mean we won't have a version 16? And the answer to that is realistically no. Version 14.02 will be our next set of enhancements, and they'll be delivered for the version 14 product and will be part of version 15 also, so they'll be available to 15.0 users. But as with every release, we want you to continue to move forward. So probably the next project coming out after 14.02 will be a 15.01, which would be an enhancement set that will be targeted to the base 15.0 release. So we will be moving away from version 14 to version 15. In the next year or two, we'll start developing new features that are not version 14 centric. We want to be able to get to the place that 14 becomes a very base stable release, and we're now moving towards 15.0 and doing 15.01 and 15.02 and that sort of thing. My hope is that we'll be able to deliver several years of functionality for a new version such as version 15 before we deliver another version such as version 16. There's no requirement to do a new version just to get a version number out there. As long as we can deliver the feature functionality that the clients need, in the existing releases without doing a major architecture change requires an upgrade, I'd much rather do it in those small eatable chunks that are much easier for the client to install than creating new releases. That said, there will be a version 16 and we'll continue going forward as needed. So that was the only question that came in on the chat line.
And there are no audio questions at this time.
Well, with that, I thank you all for attending. I hope you found this to be interesting. And as Dick said earlier, you can reach out to Dick via his email, or you can reach out to me, kevin.shuma@ca.com, if you have any additional questions. Thanks, everybody, for attending, and hopefully we'll be seeing you in January. Thank you.
Everybody have a great day.
This does conclude today's conference call. You may now disconnect.